All right, everyone. I think we're ready to get started here. We've got a lot of people on today. Very excited about that. I'm Sherry Bagley. I'm the Executive Director of the Association for Experiential Education. We are working on helping and giving resources to our members and our community at this time, and just working on supporting everybody. And one of the ways we're doing that is by having these webinars. And they're all centered around COVID-19 issues that we're dealing with. So we are looking for more presenters. We're looking for more ideas. Let us know what you need. You can reach myself at Sherry, SHERRY, at ae.org. Send me an email. Let us know what you need during this time, and we'll be happy to work on getting a webinar and resources together for you. You can also check out our website, which has a resource library, and we can we'll continue to put our webinars up as we go along. We have 3 scheduled for next week, and we'll have more the following week. So keep us in mind if you're looking for some resources. Today, we have Curt Davidson with us. He's an assistant professor at California State University, Long Beach, president of Alpenglow Education, and author of several books. He's passionate about creating hybrid experiences that are engaging for his students. Curt stepped up to be our first presenter for this series, and we're excited to have him today. Thanks so much.
Hey, all. Thanks. Can you hear me okay, Sherry?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay, great. Well, yeah, allow me to extend my special thanks to the AE for hosting this series. Helping us all out and bringing us together and providing some resources is critically important. And thanks to you all for being here. You know, it would be easy to turn inward, think about ourselves and worry about ourselves right now, but the fact that we have over 500 people registered for this is really encouraging and shows me that our community is thinking about other people right now and how we can still deliver great experiences and meaningful content. And so that's a little bit about what I wanted to talk to you about today, is how do we go from, you know, some of these engaging, experiential, in-person activities and different things to the confines of the online world. So we're going to go over some of the theory about that, and then also a little bit about some practical tools, tips you can use and share, specifically with different technology that we'll look at throughout the webinar. I am trying out some different technology as we go along, so bear with me. My computer crashed as we were getting ready for this, so I lost all my notes beforehand. So it just goes to show you, whatever you have planned, it will probably go awry and you'll have to adjust at the last minute. So without further ado, what I'd like to do is engage with you all through a platform called Mentimeter. And so this is one of the tools I wanted to showcase. There's a lot out there, and I figured we'd use it throughout this presentation as a way to interact. So if you could, on a separate browser window for side-by-side view, or on a totally different device, if you go to the website menti.com, and then you enter this code 404888, it'll pull up the presentation on that separate device. And so what you can do is either have a side-by-side view going, or you can just have one or the other. If you're in Zoom, you won't be able to interact with me in the presentation as much. And if you just have the Mentimeter slide open, you may not see the video of me, and that's okay. But as long as you have one or the other going, that would be great. And then this will help me get a read on how people are grasping the material, as well as, you know, kind of who's in the audience. I know you're all AE goers, but yeah, a little more specific detail. So if you could do that now, that would be great. And I will give you a few minutes to come in, and we'll get going with the rest of the material here. So again, you're going to go to menti.com in another window, and then enter this code 404888, and that'll enable a whole lot of features that we can use throughout the presentation. You can also, here's a little screen tip. If you want to do it on your phone, the nice thing about this software also is I use it for conference presentations a lot because, you know, you get done presenting and everybody comes up and they want to exchange business cards so that you can email them a copy of the PowerPoint. Well, this software at the end of the presentation will ask you if you want to see the results of the presentation. If you enter your email address, you'll automatically get a copy of the PowerPoint, but also all of the material that we create together. So later on, I'm going to ask you to pitch in some ideas on different things. And so you'll get a list of the things that we all come up with collectively. So another reason I like using these types of softwares. You can also at the end get on and ask me questions, and I'll try to answer those as best I can. So, all right. So you can join at any time. I'm going to go ahead and move on from that, but please join us on Mentimeter, menti.com, and we'll get started. So the first thing I was wondering is, how comfortable are we in the digital realm? So take a few minutes here and talk to me a little bit about this. So I'm very comfortable in general with the digital world. You know what resources exist out there. We've been probably, if you're like me, you've been getting bombarded with emails about free resources and people extending free trial subscriptions to software. And it's been really cool, really great, really encouraging to see how people are rallying around educators in general. And then I know how to deliver my content. So it dawned on me that the world of experiential education is extremely broad and diverse. And, you know, I'm stuck in higher education, and you might be delivering environmental ed programs or horticulture programs or whatever the case may be. And so it's going to be hard to cover all of those different areas and facets, but I'll do the best I can providing general examples, and hopefully we can work together to extrapolate the meaning behind those to you. So, okay, cool. So it looks like people are generally pretty comfortable. I mean, that's not surprising considering we probably all have a smartphone in our pockets nowadays. Looks like some resources, 2.7, and then how to deliver the content. So I'm glad that one was the lowest because that's where we're going to get started first. So really quick, like I've been mentioning throughout the intro here, we're going to talk a little bit about the theoretical framework for delivering our online content. Some people would argue, is it even possible to do experiential education online? And there's people way smarter than me out there that would say no. And there's people out there way smarter than me that would say yes. And so we'll spend a little bit of time talking about, you know, what that looks like. At the very least, we want to strive for engaging online content. It may not be totally experiential, but we're going to do the best we can providing experiences for people. And then how does these concepts we're going to talk about translate to online education? Like I said, I'll provide you with specific examples that I do and I've heard from other educators. We're going to have a cameo appearance from another educator in a bit, and she'll talk about how she uses these tools and platforms. And finally, we'll talk about technology as a tool. So technology, all this tech I'll show you throughout this presentation is free, or it has a freemium version, you know, freemium, that you can utilize to deliver some of your programs, some content, without having to shell out a bunch of money in times of financial hardship like this. What I'm trying to do is not provide you with exhaustive tutorials. There's tutorials on YouTube for all these things that are way better than I can cover in a webinar. I have a handout that I will post and I will send to AE, and they can post it on their website as well with some clickable links. If you want to go more into depth about any of the tech that I'm going to show you throughout, you can use that handout to find different resources on that. So without saying more on that, a little bit more about me. I am an assistant professor here at Cal State Long Beach. I focus on adventure education and outdoor recreation. Long Beach is interesting because it's the largest minority serving institution in the country. And so right now I'm dealing with students who work several jobs, who are laid off, who are food insecure, housing insecure. And so I wanted to talk a little bit later on about how we manage all of the burdens that our students are experiencing right now. and how we make these things, these lessons, these programs that we're shifting as accessible as possible to the largest audience. I'm also, as Sherry mentioned, president of Alpengold Education. So I sort of cut my teeth in all this. We have an online behavior and mental health care certification for experiential educators. And so developing interactive content and curriculum is an ongoing process with that. And we've been doing that for a while now. And then, yeah, like I said, the examples that I'll use are mostly from adventure education because that's my background with Outward Bound in different programs. But the fact that I'm a first generation millennial student or faculty member isn't lost on me. So what I mean by that is kind of my age range. I'm at the top of the bracket in the millennial range. And, you know, the millennials are just now getting into faculty appointments in higher education. And so I think that's increasing this push to digital throughout higher ed, as well as learning and online education in general. So yeah, I was fortunate to have a computer growing up, and I think that's made me a little bit more tech savvy than some of my peers. And so I'm going to try to explain all this in an accessible way, and feel free to use the Q&A feature both on Zoom or on Mentimeter, like I said, and we'll get to those questions a little bit later on. So yeah, that's where I'm coming from. But before we move on any further, I need a little bit more information about who's on this call. And so I was hoping if you could just take a minute, provide me with basically your job title or what label best describes your position at your organization. And this is just going to be helpful for me to understand who's on this call and maybe how I can cater some of the content and examples that I'm going to use for this lesson here or webinar. So we have consulting, program directors, educators. Great. Wow. And so while this is happening, something I'll point out is a way to visually engage your audience is pretty critical. I'm trying to avoid, and you'll hear me harp on this throughout, the voice over PowerPoint sort of default that we do. Because we're racing to online education, we don't have a ton of time to develop these programs and systems. It's easy to do voice over PowerPoint, but it's not the best way that students learn. And so, yeah, breaking up the lecture, the webinar lesson with things like this is super helpful. And this is a great example of that. So plus it also helps me get to understand who's out there. So yeah, if you haven't used a word cloud before, the more times a word appears in the responses, the bigger it gets, and it sort of helps you get to know your audience. So we got some instructors, professors, faculty, consultants, facilitators. Great. Yeah, thanks for being here, and I hope that this is useful and relevant information. So to begin, if your Mentimeter is stuck, like if you didn't respond, up at the top, you can hit advance to the next slide and catch up with us. But a couple of just caveats before we get started. So this is COVID-19 and the race to digital teaching and learning. And some things that I will stress is to go easy on yourself. You are impacted too. It's easy to get in this mindset of our students are dealing with this thing, but so are you. And so just keep that in mind. Operate with some grace for yourself in this, and we're going to do the best we can with the limited resources and time that we have. Great courses, for example, require tons and tons of time. If you've ever done a course online, like with Linda or some of the Coursera, I think is another one, those courses generally take about 500 hours to make. And so if you're like me, we had a week to throw our content up online. I don't have 500 hours. I also teach 4 courses. And so, yeah, I just don't have the time to do the best job that I could possibly do. And that's okay. Yeah, there's a really great article. I'll reference it in the handout that we'll provide, but I just want to emphasize it's okay to do a bad job right now. I mean, unfortunately, some of our students are going to fall through the cracks. My sister teaches at a low socioeconomic school in Southern Indiana, and her students don't have Wi-Fi and they don't have laptops and tablets. Unfortunately, we're going to lose some students in this, and some people are going to fall behind. And so I'm trying to look at that as an opportunity for our programs to help those students catch up when this is all said and done. But in the interim, you know, we're doing the best we can with what we have. And then finally, a tip I would promote is this lean towards asynchronous learning. So if you're unclear of the difference, synchronous versus asynchronous, synchronous is like when I still have my class on Tuesdays and Thursdays from 1 to 2:45, and we still meet over Zoom. So my time is synchronized with the students. Asynchronous is a little bit different. I lean towards a mixture where the students have online learning modules that they are required to do within the week. And so that's more asynchronous, where they have this time on their hands to work through the content. The reason for that is it's complex, but basically I have a student, she emailed me and said, hey, I can't get my assignments done on time. I'm working double shifts at Walmart. I driving for Uber, and now I'm delivering groceries for my parents and grandparents so that they don't have to go to the store. Our students are dealing with a lot. And so allowing them freedom, time, and space to still work on their courses is so important right now. And so I just encourage you to think about that. Think about what our students are going through right now. It can free up their time and reduce their stress in a big way. And so I promise the theory won't be super boring and in depth, but I did find this as I was preparing this lesson to think about how this has helped the theory behind this, and found this to be pretty helpful to sort of compartmentalize the experience, the reflection piece, the conclusion and the learning, and the applied lessons that our students typically go through in the experiential learning cycle. So been in this field for a while, you may have seen this. If not, there's some great resources out there about more, but this is sort of how our students tend to learn about this. And so what I'd like to do is specifically, like I said, break this down and figure out how this applies specifically to what we're doing. And so here's an example for one of my classes. I teach a recreation resource management course here at Cal State Long Beach, and I'm constantly trying to provide experiential lessons and engaging lessons for the students. And so first I create the experience. I do a whole module that's on soil and water and issues surrounding that, considering, you know, we kind of live in this deserty area. And so I have them go out of their home, usually to a local park, or sometimes it's in their home, and find an issue related to that. So I've had students post pictures of potholes, pictures of a local trail in their park that's cut underwater right now from a recent rain, leaky faucets, all of these apply. And so that I tend to think of as the experience. The student then comes back and posts through one of the digital platforms I'm going to show you how it's important to what we're learning and how the course concepts apply to that specific post. And then I'll facilitate some learning about the issue with some online learning content, particularly like soil erosion, water conservation issues, and how those apply to us who live where we have to bring our water in from long distances and why that's important. So they'll learn some background information, and then I'll also talk about what solutions apply to the problem they presented. So like in the case of the leaky faucet in the house, I had a student send me a video later of her and her dad fixing that leaky faucet. And I thought, wow, you know, what a great applying of the lessons learned and completing sort of the online learning cycle there that we talk about. And so that's what I'm trying to get you to encourage you to think about today. How do we create these experiences, the reflection, concluding in the learning, and supplying some supportive information and content, as well as the lessons learned and the application to future directions. And so the biggest thing, the biggest hurdle I think for us is to be comfortable not being at the experience, right? I mean, we're always there. We're facilitating the low ropes course, the high ropes course, the rock climbing wall, all these different things. And now we can't be there. And so just acknowledging that, I think will go a long way for us all in understanding, yeah, it's okay that we create these experiences for students that we're not directly supervising. I'm going to give you a list here of some different lessons, all with the understanding that you're setting up these experiences to be safely facilitated. And so here's a couple of examples that I use throughout my classes. So creating digital scavenger hunts is really amazing. It's a great way to get students to engage in their local resource or even their house or whatever the case may be, their backyard. What kind of plants do you have in your backyard? Take photos of those. So you're creating this experience for the students out there to go out and find different things. There's tons of great virtual tours happening right now that are all free. Google Earth has some amazing features on it, and it's all free from Google. There's also virtual museum tours that you can get. And I know this isn't as good as going to these museums or to these resources, but again, doing the best we can type of situation. You can have them shadow professionals or others. Like I said, later on, another faculty is going to come in and talk to us about how she's creating that system through online mediums where tourism students are connecting with professionals in their field through online mediums and providing some shadowing type of experiences. And then there's also great documentaries out there. So there's Brat Camp, which is a wilderness therapy type of show that you can find. It's all free on YouTube. There's a documentary called The Year at Okoloni, I think is how you say it. I'm going to butcher that. But you can create experiences with that engages students in the visual and sort of helps supplant them into those experiences and different things. You can help them explore physical space, like I was saying, the backyard, the neighborhood, the local park if it's still open, hopefully. And then another assignment that I really like, or activity, is I call it the 100 observation assignment. But basically that's where students choose one tree or one leaf or one bush or whatever they have access to and write down 100 observations. And so that's this idea of not expanding out into these vast experiences, but dialing it in and really digging in deep, which sometimes can fall on the wayside in traditional experiential lessons. So you have them narrow their focus to one specific thing and really dive in deep to that assignment. And so I wanted to emphasize this before we get into some of the tech that can help us facilitate those experiences, is that technology is a part of the lesson. It's not the whole. So a trap that people can fall into is using and relying on the technology too much and doing it just for the sake of using that platform. I'm guilty of that. I find this new software, I get really excited about it, and I just have to use it in this class without providing a little bit of insight or forethought into first, how is this using this technology facilitating learning about something that's important to me in this class? And so, yeah, I would just encourage you to think about that. What way does technology should enhance and add to the course, not just be the thing that we're doing. Also consider your students who may not have laptops, cell phones, Wi-Fi. I'm always trying to provide alternative assignments for these lessons as well. I also have a fair number of students who just don't like to be videotaped, won't videotape themselves. And so I'm always providing them with another opportunity to submit that assignment. Like they can submit a journal entry, a diary entry, a discussion post, something that they can just write, email me the post, whatever the case may be, and go that way. So particularly also with younger kids that you might be working with, there's some invasion, some privacy issues that you need to consider as well with using technology, some of these technological advances and systems. So yeah, just make sure you're being cognizant of all those issues as we move forward. So digging into the technology a little bit. So first, I wanted to just talk a little bit. I know I tried to dissuade you from using synchronous activities, but for some of us, that might be the necessary thing that we do, or it might be the best considering the lesson that we're giving or whatever. This webinar is a great example. So yeah, using engaging software. There's tons of free engaging software out there to make your PowerPoints interesting and interactive. Like I said, this is Mentimeter. It's probably the only not free thing I'm going to show you, but Poll Everywhere works really great with Google Slides. Nearpod, there's tons of these different platforms out there, so find out which one works best for you, and I'll post some links to resources on that. Choose a person specifically in the workshop to work with. So we're going to try this out later. We're going to get some feedback and some ideas from you all. Use exercises and challenges throughout the module. So if you consider an engaging classroom lesson, you probably wouldn't stand up there for an hour and a half or whatever and just lecture, right? You're gonna have the students at least stop and talk to each other and different things. So break up the monotony of your own online learning lesson with exercises and challenges, with polls. Don't forget to interject videos. Just mixing up the speaker is a great way to do this. And then, yeah, check for comprehension before, during, and after the lesson. They might know all the content before you give that lesson. So maybe you can skip it or talk about something more advanced. And then during, draw students back into the lesson. And then afterwards to know how effective you were at being an instructor on that. So here's, speaking of poll, here's a little question for y'all. How long is the average American's attention span now? I'll give you a hint. It has been shrinking over time, and there is some mixed thoughts about this. Some different research pops up every once in a while, but by and large, let's see what we got here. So looks like 3 minutes is a good choice. 10 minutes. 5 minutes, cool. All right. Yeah, so yeah, you're on the right, thinking in the right ballpark. It varies for different students, but on average, the average American attention span is about 5 minutes. And so obviously, as a person gets older, maybe more mature, they can focus for a little bit longer. Younger kids, we might think about, it's a little bit less. So you have to consider drawing people back. And this stems from an idea that we talk about a little bit called infotainment versus entertainment or information, sort of a combination of the two. Unfortunately, we can't just be teachers anymore. We also have to be entertaining thanks to YouTube and TED Talks and all these things. And so use that to your advantage. Use those external resources to bring people back. I generally shoot for about every 4 to 6 minutes of when I mix in my interactive lesson, my poll, my quiz question, my word cloud, whatever the case may be. So I'm shooting for about 5 minutes. This, I don't want to harp on this too much, but this is another reason why voice over PowerPoint just is pretty challenging for students to pay attention to. The monotonous talking for 20 to 30 minutes. You're going to lose those students in about 5 minutes, and they're going to be on Facebook or Instagram or Twitter, whatever the case. So consider this as just sort of a guideline as we move forward with all this topic. And the good news is about that is creating experiences through content curation. It doesn't have to be a one-person show. You don't have to create all the content for yourself. So for example, particularly if you're making videos, it takes me about 8 hours to make a 4-minute video for the behavioral first responder course. And so I'm in there editing audio and video and getting stock footage, and it's ridiculously time consuming. And so I would encourage you strongly to think about where you can get outside content. There are many, many options for this. And right now is a great time to keep your ear to the ground and see what's out there and what people are sharing and different things. And we'll talk more about some copyright considerations and different things like that a little later. But chances are, if you're teaching a lesson, it exists elsewhere in a lesson plan or a video or something. So check it out before you spend the time to make it all yourself. Chances are, because they made it when they weren't time stressed, their product is going to be better than what you could create on your own. And so do yourself a favor, do your students a favor, do that artist or author a favor, and use their content when you can. So that brings us to this next question. Other than YouTube, where are some of the places you might find content that you could use? Remember that you all will get a copy of this at the end of the presentation. And so I included this question in there with the hopes that you all could help contribute to this sort of resource base that we could all use. So if you could take a minute, talk to us a little bit about some of the content that you're finding, content that you're using, so on and so forth. News sites are great, current events, AE, yep. Google, direct.com. Yeah, some of my favorites have been, I've been trying to use Twitter hashtags more and more that are relevant to our course topics. I also teach some skill-based courses like rock climbing and use, you can find hashtags that are relevant to that. If you're unsure what a hashtag is, that's a way to classify posts and different things. And so you can take that hashtag and send it to your students so that they see, it's been really interesting to post that for students so that they can see what the AMGA and the Access Fund are posting about staying away from climbing sites during the COVID-19 crisis, for example. And so that's a really great way to combine some of these other platforms with current events that are going on and different things. Yeah, National Geographic's a great one. I saw that the Washington Post has some 3D interactive content for some desert environments and different stories related to that. So you can check that out as well. But there is a lot of content out there as this word cloud is now showing. So yeah, I'm gonna let you all keep going on that for a hot minute so we get our nice big list. Another recent one I heard about is called Redfish, and that's free online textbooks that people are doing. If you use books, a lot of the publishers right now are doing free ebooks for students. Like our students here at Long Beach State had to leave the dorms in basically like 4 days. And so a lot of them didn't take their textbooks because they were packing up their personal stuff, and they're not going to be allowed in until fall. And so they weren't able to take their textbooks in a lot of cases. And so some of these publishers have allowed us to post the ebooks for a limited time on our sites, and that's been super helpful as well. So yeah, that's a great list. I can't wait to dig into some of these topics and resources. It looks like lots of content out there. And so the next thing I wanted to talk about is how do you take content from all of these topics or all of these places and get them to your students? And so that can be a real challenge because, you're posting links from places, you're posting videos and all this stuff. One of my favorite content curation tools is called Wakelet. And so I'm going to switch into the tab really quick, and I'm going to show you my Wakelet collection. And so this is an example that I post. I teach a class called Desert Expeditions, and this is an example of one of the content curated posts that I'll use for this class. And so imagine this whole screen, all this content I can embed into our LMS or learning management system. We use Blackboard here. I can embed all this content with one click into that LMS. And you can do this with Google Classrooms, all that stuff, and I'll show you that in a second. But basically, it looks like this. I can put this cover photo up right here. So my students see this. This is the finished product. So I have a cover photo here that depicts what I'm going to be talking about. This particular one is on desert ecology, and it allows me to post the content from different places. Here I can see some items and views, etc. I can contribute with other people. So maybe if you're team teaching or you want some outside input on your lessons, you can use this. But basically, this is what it looks like. So I have the students work in a linear path downward through my material. So the first one is a YouTube video that I liked for this topic. This is an interactive website about California's desert plants, desert animals here, another YouTube video, and some Twitter feeds about some desert things that I liked, and then some more Twitter about some photos, resources about hiking in the desert, et cetera, et cetera. And so this platform is so nice because I can, like I said, I can share this entire thing with the students by clicking here and then this embed code. And if you don't know how to embed, now is a great time to learn because it's a way to get content from platforms like this into your LMS or whatever you're using. I can just click this, copy the embed code, and paste it into my resource, whatever I'm giving out to the students. Alternatively, I can also send them this QR code, which they can scan with the phone, or I can just send them a good old-fashioned link right here. This is really nice because I can embed it in a Google Classroom. I can embed it in a team if you're using that, Facebook, Twitter, Remind Me, all those different options. And so it's super easy to use. So I want to show you this really fast. So to edit this, let's say I found a resource I want to add. I just click Edit Collection. And then I can come down here and where I figure out where I want to insert something, click the plus, and then that gives me all my options. I can do just a website. I can create my own text if I wanted to comment on something, YouTube, Twitter, a bookmark, an image that I made, a PDF, anything from your Google Drive or OneDrive that's saved there. And this is another feature I really like, a Flipgrid insert, which I'm going to show you here in a few minutes. So it's super easy to put stuff together. You can also click this and reorder these things really easily. And so then you have some great content. You save it and then share it to your students. And like I said, I'll post a more detailed handout in the handout, more detailed tutorial in the handout that I'm going to give you. Also, so I get questions all the time about how do I teach rock climbing in a hybrid format. I use these other apps. I use existing content for those things. So it would take me a really long time, for example, to make videos about how to tie knots. And there's probably 8,000 different videos about how to tie a bowline on YouTube. And so I use different apps for that. I post them how to tie the knot. And then I use apps like Showbie. Showbie is a way for students to submit photos or other things digitally. And so it's like a digital inbox, and it makes grading really easy. I can mark up their photos. Like if somebody misties the bowline, I can circle right on the screen and write not correct, or maybe they forgot the backup knot. So Showbie is a great way if you're doing physical skills and you want photo submissions or file submissions. They have a free version as well, just because of kind of an alternative. And then another question I get really regularly, because students are interacting with Wakelet, so I'm not delivering a lecture necessarily or a lesson, and then they're submitting their assignments on these other platforms, also not interactive or interpersonal interactive. I am going to go out of my way to create these interpersonal interactions. And so some thoughts, the ways you can do this is providing students in your class with their own space. And so think about it as a way to simulate that time in the classroom that they're all chit-chatting before you walk in. So you can do that in a lot of different ways. You can create their own discussion board that they have, or their own Flipgrid topic to talk back and forth. You can use your own Twitter handle or Twitter hashtag to where they can talk about the class. Or you could use these other more structured platforms like your Google Forum, your Google Classroom, your learning management software, Canvas, Moodle, Blackboard. Other folks are using Microsoft Teams, which is free, Twitter, Slack. All these different things are really great resources and ways to foster that interpersonal interaction with each other. Another suggestion I would also get is comment encouragingly. And so you want to provide students with lots and lots of feedback if you can. Always encouragingly try to avoid the negative comments or structure them in a way where they're constructive and they can build on that. And then also sharing personal stories about yourself. Students really connect through those stories. They learn more background about you. And so, yeah, sharing a little bit about yourself is totally fine. It would come out in the classroom or in the lesson anyways, so make sure you provide time and space for that as well. A couple of other ways to encourage peer-to-peer interaction that I really like to use are the following. So I will have students peer review assignments, and particularly with papers and presentations. So that does a couple of different things. That increases the quality of their presentation or paper before I see it. And so that's really helpful. But it also gets students talking back and forth a little bit and dialoguing about the assignment or whatever the case may be, and they bounce ideas off of each other. This is how you make it better. I usually provide points for showing that they've marked up their other student, so you know that they're kind of following through with this. And yeah, like I said, it just increases the quality of the products that the students can create. So another way to do it is peer consultations with Zoom or in breakout sessions. You can use the Zoom feature to do small groups, breakout rooms where you can pair students off individually. They can pull up their assignments and look at each other. And then live Q&A sessions are really great. Like we're going to do that at the end. I see the questions popping up there, and I promise we'll get to those. And so, yeah, just think about that. Think about how you're taking questions and providing resources for folks for the future. So moving on from that, creating the experience a little bit into the following stages of the experiential learning, we talk about reflection, critical analysis, and synthesis being really important to the experiential learning process. And these are actually some of the easier things to duplicate in the online digital realm. And so I know these are a staple of the experiential education process. The tools I'll show throughout this presentation really foster this process. Flipgrid coming up that I'm going to show you is really nice. Some things to remember that you can use are vlogs or blogs. So a vlog being the video version of a blog. It's a mouthful. And yeah, I'm going to show you this tool called Flipgrid that will show you a really good, easy way to do that. And they're also really great for fostering reflection. So one of my favorite things to do is have the students create a wakelet that we just showed you. And so, for example, what makes a good leader? So I'll have them post content and topics on what makes a good leader, and then they share their whole wakelet with me, and so I can see what content they've curated, and what that allows me to see what they value as a leader, what attributes they think is important, and then I'll have them reflect there at the end about you know, what makes a good leader. So that's another example of how you can use Wakelet not as just a content delivery site, but also as an assignment. So that's a really popular assignment with my students as well. So the next tool I'll show you really quick, again, this is not an exhaustive tutorial by any means, but this is my absolute favorite tool right now. It's called Flipgrid. It was bought by Microsoft and made totally free a couple of weeks ago, or months ago, I'm sorry. And this is what it looks like. So Flipgrid has a great app that students can use on their phones. So it eliminates, a lot of my students do lessons on the bus or on their breaks at work, so they're not necessarily sitting in front of a computer, which is important when you're moving this into the digital world. Make sure your stuff works on phones and tablets in addition to laptops. And so this is what it looks like when they pull up their desktop. It looks very similar on the your phone. And so you just provide, this is the class that we're working on, the rock climbing class. You can see here the name of the class. This is the topic. So this one has particularly 17 different topics. A lot of knot tying in this class, obviously, rock climbing. And so, yeah, it's really cool. So these are my student submissions. This is what the students see. I'm going to show you what the educators see here in a minute. But to watch one of these, all I have to do is click on one of these student bios, and I can figure out who that student is, as well as learn a little bit about their interests and different things, and that can be super helpful. And to add a video, it's pretty obvious. You just click the giant plus, and it allows the students to record their video submission. And this works really great for reflections and analysis and all those different assignments that we just talked about, all those ways we want to get our learners to think on the last slide. And what's really cool is, so again, this is what the student sees. This is what the educator sees. So this is a different class. And these are all my topics. My class is up here. And then I can make due dates. I can schedule which ones are active and which ones are closed, if they can no longer get credit for those. What's really nice is if I click into here, and I did get the student's consent to use this video. So I'm going to show you Elizabeth's post here. This is what I see when I'm grading. And so this is her post for that.
Okay, so for my water source video or chat, I'm going to show you a picture because it's super windy outside. So bear with me.
So that's a photo of the park issue that she found. There's a big puddle right there. And so I'm asking her to reflect on that. What's really cool about this was a great post, so I might feature the response, and that encourages other students to see it. I can reply right in Flipgrid
hey guys,
to respond to her. Students can like each other's posts, and I can comment and grade right here, and it emails the student the feedback. And so that's super helpful. I was leery about this, but it really encourages students to work to engage with the course content. I mean, if you look at the views of some of these videos, this one was viewed 37 times by students, 19, 10, 23. And so students really get in here, watch each other videos, and I think that goes a long way for the learning for our students. So that's, again, a really quick thing about Flipgrid. And again, I have a link to a tutorial in the handout that's everything you could want to know about using Flipgrid. I would highly recommend you check this app out. Again, it's all free, and I haven't had any problems with students saying it doesn't work and all those different things. So be sure to check that one out as well. So I wanted to engage with one of you all in this next slide. And hear some different opinions about some of these things. If Flipgrid or Wakelet really resonated with you and it was like a light bulb going off of, this is how I can use those platforms, if you could chat with Sherry or raise your hand, and Sherry will unmute you and just tell us about your idea to use some of these platforms. See if this works. I see some folks raising their hands, Sherry. Oh, I think I can allow them to talk. How about, could we get Kate Hartwig to tell us a little bit about what she's thinking?
Can you see me?
We can hear you.
Okay, you can hear me, great.
Yeah.
So I am a middle school science teacher in Utah, and I work at a school that is experiential. It's experiential education. It's an expeditionary learning school. And instead of a homeroom every day, we have what we call crew. And that's a time in the beginning of the day where the kids can come in and kind of get ready for school instead of just jumping right into class. We talk about how their weekend was, they can ask questions. And I'm really thinking that Flipgrid now could take the place of my crew class. I'm using Google Classroom right now, but this is a little bit more interactive for the students to share their feelings and their thoughts. So that might take the place of my crew. Great.
Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks. All right. I think we have time for maybe one more. How about Bree Schulman? I'm going to allow you to talk here and see. Can you give us some insight into how you're thinking about using these things?
Yeah, sure. So I am a program therapist and a director for a nonprofit wilderness therapy program up in Montana. And we're seasonal, and so that means we're hiring a bunch of staff right now, and we'd like to be training them in person, but we're not able to do that quite yet, but we need them to be competent in making friction fires. So we're just talking today about helping them identify how to collect the materials out in the wild, and then this will give us an opportunity to be able to observe them practicing and giving them kind of immediate feedback. So this answers a lot of questions for me. Thank you.
Awesome. Yeah, great. Okay. Yeah, it's nice to hear from some folks other than me for a bit about using these tools. So yeah, just a couple more things here, and then we'll start to wind down a little bit. I also wanted to show you another platform called Nearpod, and this is really big in the K through 12 world. But when you're really thinking about delivering content in concert with some experiential and particularly visually engaging information, this platform is probably leading the way for that topic. And so this, I want to say too, they do have a free version, and you can have so many lessons, you get storage space. So if you have more videos and photos, you burn through that storage space a little bit faster. But you can create these amazing lessons, and they look like this to the learner. You can also do live lessons. So I'll use this actually in class while I'm lecturing instead of a PowerPoint on a screen behind me, as well as an asynchronous tool where the students have access to it for 30 days or so. So I'm just going to show you the preview here. And so, yeah, this is a lesson about bottled water. And so the different environmental implications for single-use plastic. And so, yeah, started off with a question about just to get their brains going on the topic and some different learning objectives here. And then first I'm going to show them a virtual exploration. And like I said, these are super easy to make. You can just, they have a lot of templates and different things. but I want this to sort of elicit those emotions that as you all know, as experiential educators, that often come out in our lessons. I'm trying to duplicate that with images like this. So obviously a horrific image here of a bunch of single-use plastics on a beach. And so, yeah, again, just, you know, is it the same as going there and picking up the plastic maybe as a service project? No, but it's a pretty cool way to see like a real thing, and they can explore with this all around. I also use this in my rec resource management class where I plunk them down in a resource like Yellowstone, and they can look at the, you know, the boardwalks, for example, to keep people off the geysers and different things. So it's a cool tool. And then the other nice thing about this is it's really user friendly to make. You can make these really quite quickly. This is a collaborative discussion board where the students can type. They can upload a photo of an issue. So maybe you're collecting information about what topics are important to them. They can add photos here and post, and they show up there, and they can like each other's discussion board posts. This is a really nifty feature. And then, yeah, you can embed web pages and then make these fill in the blanks really quickly and easily. So they just kind of drag and drop these things in, and that's another way to engage them in the content. And then there's also open-ended questions where they type, and you can download all their responses and grade those later if you want to grade them. And yeah, it's just a great way to deliver content out there. There's a lot of pre-made lessons they might be a couple bucks. Sometimes they give them away for free. Sometimes they're $3 and $4. You know, if you found one that you really liked, like I said, this one's more geared towards K through 12. So there is some limited stuff if you're in higher ed like myself, but easy to make. This is the platform right here. And let me just show you really quick. You edit the software or the presentation. You add slides. Do I want to add content? Do I want to add web content or an activity? I'm going to show you the activities. So this is like a quiz challenge that they do, open-ended question, matching games, quizzes. I can embed those Flipgrid topics right in here, which is really cool. Flipgrid, yeah, it's really versatile. It goes with a lot of different software, which is another reason I really like it. You can have them draw different things, collaborative board, like I showed you, polling, fill in the blanks, memory tests. So lots of rich content on this platform. So there's a little video on that. I think we kind of covered that, so I'm going to skip that for now. But I also want to talk about, yeah, these authentic learning experiences, circling back to this idea. Another thing that I found to be useful is using their home environment. And so think about that when your students, you know, your curriculum might be geared towards experiential education programs in North Carolina. Well, their students might be at home now, and then maybe they're in Texas or Wyoming or wherever. And so catering it to the individual is another consideration I would put out there for you. Think about changing your lessons that's applicable to wherever the student is, basically. Think about you can think about their community, region, what have you. You can also use real world or current events. Chances are, and I've found this to be true with my students, is they want to talk to me about the pandemic. I don't know why. It's not like I know more than the average person out there, but yeah, just having somebody to talk to about it, maybe that they're not stuck at home with. And so don't be afraid to facilitate those conversations with your students. Don't also be afraid to focus on tangible skills, tangible skill building. And you can do these things. You can have these students do things like create a weather log without even going outside. So again, emphasis on safety in these experiences, but yeah, you can do that just by looking out the window. And that's a way to engage them with the natural environment. And then, yeah, other ways to make it applicable, for example, the knot tying lessons, for example, how can you use that around your house? What do you need to tie down right now? Use a trucker's hitch for that and tie that thing down or whatever the case. So being creative, using your creativity, super important there. And again, yeah, fostering those relationships with your student between you and them. And so here's a couple of just quick tips you can do. Take unedited videos with your cell phone. So students like that, they don't always have to see a polished product. You know, sometimes I'll be walking the dog, I'll whip out my cell phone and take a little intro video or reflection on the topic that they're learning about. that week. So that could be super important for you. Yeah, like I said, creating that first Flipgrid topic as a 2-minute bio. And I watch those throughout the semester to remind myself which student is who. I have about 140 students or so, so it's hard for me to keep track of them all the time. So I'll rewatch those. That's a really great way. I take notes on the students' interest and try to weave those into the classes or to my feedback that I give them in the discussion boards and posts. Make sure you're responding to the student posts. So it's easy to post the question and then you grade it a week later. Well, you want to be actively engaged in those discussion posts. So I'm in Flipgrid, I'm in the discussion boards throughout the week. I try to do about 30 minutes a day, engaging with different students, posting videos, responses to them, asking them to think critically or think further about what they've posted, different things. And then you probably all know this, but splitting classes into smaller chunks, more manageable chunks, really valuable. And there's, we've talked about some different ways to do that. Show your students your workspace. This also helps you connect with the student. So we live on a boat in the marina. I like for students to see that because I think it helps humanize me a little bit. I'm not just somebody typing on the keyboard behind the scenes here. They know where I'm working from. Consider too that when they're doing Flipgrid, that you're asking in a way to see their homes and their workspaces. And so it's only fair that you, lead by example on that and show them your workspace beforehand as well. One couple of other things, clean and clear learning, some tips to consider and conclude. Try to streamline your systems. And so this is an example. This is what our learning management system looks like. The picture on the top is the default, and there's several menu items. Let's see if this works up in here. And so I always go in and just weed out the ones I don't need. And so it's a much cleaner, simpler menu to keep students on track, on pace. And you can talk with your LMS provider or whoever about that. And then finally, creating a linear path when possible. So you want your students to not miss anything. You want them to go in the order that you want, that you've set that curriculum. And so working from top to bottom and also condensing all the resources. So this is what my modules look like. If they click the arrow, they can see all the, sorry, I'm trying to clear that drawing. They can see all the things that they need. It's all the content and the assignments. And if they work from top to bottom, I know they're not gonna miss anything in that module. So give them some insight, some forethought into that. Pretty important as well. Consider vetting your material and checking for closed captions in case you have hearing impaired students. There's a lot of weird and inaccurate videos on YouTube. And so make sure you're giving those a watch before you post them for your students, checking them for captioning, providing students with alternative text for photos and images in case they are using a screen reader, super important. There's a great accessibility document that I'm gonna post in the handout, and it's how to do all these things, and it's all the considerations you should think about before you post content. Things like prescribing color to like highlighting words to make them more meaningful. Is screen readers don't pick up on that kind of stuff. So you want to avoid doing those types of things or using weird fonts. Charts and tables, again, screen readers have a really hard time with all that stuff. So maybe figure out a different way to convey that information to people. And like I said, I see some curiosity cats clicking up. So definitely check out that handout when it gets posted on the AE website. Another thing I like to do is explain my decision making. Why am I using that book? Why is this timeline important? Why that topic? Why that assessment? So just providing the students with a little bit of rationale will go really far. And then finally, I wanted to bring in a guest speaker. And so, yeah, she's doing some really great work with our students here at Long Beach State. She's a fellow professor, Katie Dudley. I'm gonna unmute her and see if she can pop in here and talk to us about what she's doing with our tourism students here. So Katie, are you there?
I am here, but I think we both tried to unmute my video at the same time. So I think I unmuted it and you muted it.
Oh, sorry.
Now it won't let me.
Katie. Let's Oh, you're a panelist. That's why. Let's see.
Oh, okay.
Maybe Sherry might have to help us here on this one.
Okay.
Can you do it now, maybe?
Let's see. No, it just says that I can't start because the host has stopped it. But I'll just share my screen for now
Okay.
and talk a little bit. So yeah, I use an app for one of my classes called Slack. And so like a lot of things that you were saying already today, where our student population, they're facing a lot of challenges. All students are facing challenges, but our students have quite a few right now. So when we were told to go online, I wanted to take that into consideration, that maybe not all of my students could get on at the specific times that we were trying to have, that we would have had class. Okay, I think I might be able to do it now.
Yeah.
There we are.
Yeah.
All right. But yeah, so that how could we do this in a way that didn't require them? And then also the course that I'm talking about is tourism, resort, and recreation management. So that in and of itself is a hard course to just be a classroom-based course and wrap your head around the concepts. And so what I ended up doing is taking the entire class over to Slack. So if anyone's not familiar with Slack, it's kind of set up just the same as a WhatsApp or a GroupMe or even GChat. So you just chat, you can chat with your students, but also you can do a lot of interactive things. You can drop videos into it and not have to worry about the Dropbox quotas that we face a lot with our system of Beachboard or Blackboard. And you can make different channels within it. And so again, with everything that's going on, tourism and resort management is kind of at the forefront of it. So like you said, your students wanted to talk to you about a pandemic. For me to try and say, I can remotely understand what people who are managing resorts right now are going through would definitely be an overreach of my knowledge on the topic. And so what we've done is I've created an assignment for them, and each student, or they're going to be in pairs actually, they choose a different resort setting. So that could be a spa resort, a cruise resort, beach resorts, golf resorts, so on and so forth. And we'll spend a week talking about that resort. And so it's their job to go out and find professionals in the field that specialize in that type of resort. And so kind of how we move forward with that is on the Friday of the week before we talk about that, the students in charge will give out the links to the companies where the professionals work so that the students can do a little research on it. By Monday, every student has to put in what you can see here is our group discussion. Every student has to put 3 questions that they would like to see answered by that professional. So then the student in charge will go in and make an actual channel for that specific topic and for those professionals. And so then that student in charge will go in and pick which questions, and they'll spread the questions out throughout the week. They'll moderate the conversations. If the students aren't engaging as much as they should, that student is in charge of going back and making sure that the students are engaged, making sure that the conversation keeps going. And then by the end of the week, let me see if I get my group discussion back. By the end of the week, whoever is in charge then goes out, will go back and they create a presentation on all of the main topics that were discussed during that week. So now the students, have learned a lot more inside information about the concepts. Oh, it's not shared? Oh, is my Slack screen showing?
We're still seeing you.
Oh, okay. Well,
That's all right.
Let's see. Can you see it now?
Yes.
All right. So
Awesome.
yeah, so if anybody's interested and if you haven't used Slack before, this is what it looks like. So when I talk about channels, we have a group discussion. Here's where we talk with our professionals over to the side. So you can see the professionals even have given us some pictures of what they're doing.
Yeah.
And so, like I say, you know, we can, so, and like you were saying, Curt, is humanize it, make it fun. So, you know, this is where we talk about our confusion with assignments, everything. I try and give some positive feedback to the students in these stressful times. And you can essentially just drop anything in there. And so, you know, at the end of the day, in these odd times, you know, they may not be going as deep into the concepts. But what I'm hoping that they can get out of this, because this class is primarily seniors getting ready to graduate. So now whoever's leading the topic, they're at least walking out of here with solid connections that they're just kind of cold calling out on LinkedIn and getting a good response. Professionals are willing to talk to them about what's going on. So they'll have that networking, and then they'll also start to understand, because this it's more of an at your convenience throughout the week. So they can start to understand everyone's professional life of being on call 24/7, but also being able to manage that and knowing when to put it away and when to carve out some time to actually respond and move forward with it. So that's just one way that we're using this. And like I say, I've moved this class completely off of Beachboard because I didn't want to deal with the, you know, anticipated Zoom problems and take into consideration our students' access to certain things. So the entire class is just held here on Slack.
Cool. Have you found that the students have adjusted pretty quickly, easily to Slack? And then also the, how about the professionals? Are they already on Slack, or how does that work?
Yeah, I actually, not a single professional yet that we've invited on here had heard of Slack or used Slack yet.
Oh, really?
Yeah, so, but like I said, it's just such an easy platform that's kind of mirrored to one of the ones that we're using already. It just has a lot more capabilities to it. So they're open and quick to join in. And the students, I haven't had any issues with them. So I don't, you know, none of them had really used it either, but I think, like you were saying, I think we're both at the top end of the millennials. And so maybe we catch on a little bit faster, but they catch on a lot faster. And they seem to like this better than, again, having to meet up at a certain time or anything like that. So it's so far so good, and they're doing a good job engaging with it.
Cool. All right. Well, thanks for sharing. We appreciate you popping in for your cameo.
Yeah, thanks for having me.
All right. So I'm going to take back over here and see if I can get you back on my screen, and just a couple of really quick things I wanted to do to wrap up. So here's a short list. If any of the tech that we've talked about doesn't exactly meet your needs, feel free to check out this list and different things. So yeah, Satori is a really cool content curation. It's kind of like Wakelet, but you can embed quizzes. Perusall lets students collaborate on PDFs or other documents together. And Adobe Spark is an AI content creation tool that you can use to create really cool slides and videos and stuff like that. So check those out when you can. And finally, yeah, just some considerations across the board. Make sure to check out the copywritten and privacy information with the stuff that you're sharing. So again, the handout that I'm going to provide has a really great document from Cal State Long Beach that sort of lays out what it means to use copywritten information and what you need to do to get permission, or do you need permission or not. So be sure to check those out. For example, there's like the 10% rule of a textbook if you're using as a nonprofit, is sort of this rule. And these are laws that are pretty confusing, but that document does a pretty decent job of laying it out for you. Provide links to videos versus embedding. So if you notice up here, when you click share in YouTube, you get these options And it's always best, when in doubt, share the link, because what that does is make sure that the artist or author gets a hit on that. So if they're receiving royalties from YouTube, for example, you're not taking away their hit count, versus if you download it, or sometimes when you embed your videos or whatever, they don't always get credit. So when in doubt, just share the link and have the students open it up in another window when you can. Try to avoid embedding just for that reason. Yeah, and finally, this is a check-in regularly. This is something that's really important. You can check in on all the things we've talked about. I really like to use GroupMe, WhatsApp, or Kaizala as a Microsoft version of those with my students, so that they can text me. That also eases my email burden of all these students asking the same question via email in a private way. I'll have one student post the question. I can respond really quick and write informally, which saves me time in the long run and helps the students connect with me on different platforms and on their phones or mobile devices, which is handy. And so before we get to the Q&A, just a little recap. So again, we're trying to do the best that we can. I mean, we've covered a lot of ground in this, and you could, teacher education, you can get a PhD in that topic. So, which is some of the stuff we've covered throughout this module. So by no means is this even the tip of the iceberg. It's maybe the snowflake on top of the tip of the iceberg. So do the best you can with what you have, what resources and time that you have. Be transparent with the students. I have, this thing's not working for me, or the YouTube pulled down a video that I used to use for class and I didn't realize it until the day before, and there was a quiz about that video. So I just gave everybody 100% on that quiz, and I said, this is the best I can do. I can't go find an alternative video and make a quiz by the time they're all going to watch that video. So I'm doing what I can. Using technology with a purpose, super important. We talked about that. Don't try to create all this content yourself. Chances are you can find it if you spend a little time. It's going to be less time going to find it than it is to create it, a really quality product. At the end of the day, what we're trying to do, remember, is getting students to apply our course material to the real world. That's as basic as I can put what we're trying to do with experiential and engaging online education. And finally, encouraging reflection with our students. So provide time and space for that. Don't just keep throwing new content at them as we go here. So yeah, a little bit of recap. Let's just skip it. And yeah, I think the Q&As will pop up here and we can sort of go through those as they come. So, that was the first question. So this is me. Let me back up a little bit. This is me. If you want to reach out, feel free, Curt@alpenguileducation.com, or you can find me on the Long Beach State website as well. Like I said, if you put in your email at the end, you'll get a copy of this presentation along with all of our responses. So that list of resources to find content will show up. So be sure to put in your email and get a copy of the presentation there. And yeah, I'm not like the leading expert on this by any means, but I'm always happy to lend an opinion or help you get an idea for what's happening. So yeah, let's go through a couple of these, I think, Sherry, if that's okay with you all. And so where do I create digital scavenger hunts? Like I said, I'm using those, their house, and I'm using Flipgrid or Showbie or whatever, and I'm having them look for things that are relative to my course content. So that can be issues with the resource, issues, maybe how their family's engaging in leisure. So they're taking pictures of their families while they're doing that sort of thing. So yeah, you're only limited to your imagination with those. Do they need a Flipgrid account? Yes, they need a Gmail account, but they just need an email address. So when you're creating that Flipgrid, you can create a closed group where they have to have a specific email domain or something to use Flipgrid. They do need an email account. So how would this work for experiments with a focus on diversity and cultural competencies? There are peer-to-peer or in-group orgs. Wow, that's a tough one. Again, yeah, I would default to doing the best you can with what you have. I think bringing in multiple voices to foster that idea of diversity and cultural competency You can do field trips, virtual field trips to other places. There's some great, like I said, you can tour the Louvre on Google Earth. And so checking that out and trying to embed those students into those cultures could be really helpful. Bringing in guest speakers of diverse backgrounds might be another way to increase your diversity and cultural competencies. Yeah, just bringing in outside people and different things. That's a great question. Tough one. Flipgrid interface with Zoom, or would I need them to open up two screens side by side? Yeah, so Flipgrid is typically an asynchronous thing. So they're doing Flipgrid on their own. I don't know that it interfaces with Zoom really seamlessly, but like I said, it does have a great app. So you can get on there, use the app and have students interface with you on there, and then you could pause the Zoom and go into the Flipgrid. Yeah, I don't know of any way to embed it straight into Zoom, if that's what you mean. Mentimeter does cost, I think I pay $90 a year maybe. So like I said, some free alternatives. You can use Nearpod in a similar way. Poll Everywhere, Pear Deck works really great with Google Slides. So check those three out. Those are the three I use the most on there. Anything that relates to counseling and therapeutic interventions versus educational interventions. That's a little bit outside the scope of this webinar. So sorry, I didn't cover anything on that. I imagine there's a lot of crossover there, particularly with online therapeutic counseling, but yeah, being cognizant of the FERPA laws and regulations with some of these platforms for sure. Free version of the software? No, I'm using the paid version. Sorry about that. We had 500 people in the presentation. So let's see. Yes, you can upload PDF readings right into Wakelet. You click that plus, plug them in there, and you're good to go. Do they work okay with Teams? They work great with Teams. So Flipgrid especially is owned by Microsoft extension right into Teams and plug it in there. Wakelet also, you can embed Flipgrid discussion boards right in there. Works really seamlessly. You can just click that plus and you'll see it. I think it's all the way over on the right. So check that out as well. Yes, Google Classrooms, Flipgrid, and Wakelet they all play together. So when you create a Wakelet or a Flipgrid, for example, you can post it right into Google Classroom. It saves you tons of time. It's one click literally, and it goes right into your Google Classroom. So be sure to check that out. There's a great YouTube tutorial on using those things in tandem. So check that out. Instructions for receiving the handout. You just plug in your email at the end of the presentation and it'll email you a copy. Yes, that's a great question. Zoom and FERPA with these apps, you should definitely check with your administrators if they're FERPA compliant. Flipgrid recommends you get parental consent before you ask a minor to use that. There's a great link right on their website about disclosure consent from parents and non-exclusive license to view, download. The grids are private, so you can limit who's in there, and so you're not people just randomly can't see those videos. And so usually that's a way, like our university, because of that feature, lets me still use those, but definitely check with your administrators before you use those. That's a great question. Meeting the needs of learners. Yeah, we covered this a little bit, but like I said, definitely check for screen accessibility readers. They're embedded both in Flipgrid and Wakelet accessibility and e-readers right on there. So make sure you're doing that and follow those tips and check out that handout that I provided. Share your email to receive the handouts. It's right at the end. So if you click next or finish, I think you click finish, you'll see the prompt for that. And a Redfish site for free textbooks. I'll post a link in the handout for that. Yes, you can embed Flipgrid right in your LMS. You just click share and copy the embed code and it goes right in there. Works from Canvas and Flipgrid. You're welcome. Yes, got student engagement only for super short term. Wow, that's a tough one. Yeah, my heart goes out to these people. I was freelance and seasonal for a long, long time. So I know it's hard, but yeah, doing the best you can, creating something. I always like to create something tangible that they take away. So even if you have them for an hour, they see that thing that they made, that whatever that they took from your program back home with them. They see that and it reinforces that learning that they got there. Discussion boards, make posts from cell phones and tablets. If you're not doing it in your LMS, Google Forum is the best. It's super easy to set up. It's great. You can also put it on a Google site, which makes it even easier. There's a great YouTube tutorial on that. Just Google or type into YouTube, Google Forum, how to, it'll come right up. It's a great, easy way to go. Crowdsource, in the meantime, TNC back with students easily capture content. I'm not sure about that question. Feel free to send me an email. Yeah, visually impaired students, we got that, I think, with the readers. Share back with class for further content crowdsourced and Mentimeter. I'm not sure what that question is, so we're going to skip that. Facilitate students meeting virtually in groups of 2 to practice languages. Yeah, oh, that's great. Yeah, my recommendation would probably be Flipgrid, so they go back and forth. But I'm not sure. Yeah, that's a good one. Email, Google Classroom for. If you're a program, if you're like a wilderness therapy program and you don't have a learning management system, or you want to connect with students, but you don't have a good platform for that, using Google Classrooms is a nice way to do that. There's chat features, there's a way to post assignments and content right in there. So feel free to check that out. Google Classrooms is free, it's easy to use. Tons of tutorials from teachers around the world on that. Check it out for sure. It is providing it virtually so we can maintain our program commitments and give value for already paid deposits. Man. Yeah, so there's great, what I'd highly recommend is what's happening right now is having conferences and retreats via Twitter is really popular. Again, there's a great tutorial on YouTube, but they basically use a conference hashtag. You can post videos and whatever right in there. So definitely check out, there's, like I said, you can Google how to have a conference on Twitter, check it out. And that's a great way to connect with people and still create a program for people that you might be able to, you know, have them feel like they're getting their money's worth, that you've created that. And still, you know, deliver some of your mission that you're focusing on there. Looking forward to the video to review some key points. Great. No, another meeting. Okay. We suggest build a community for summer school. We won't already have the community. Yeah, highly recommend you use Flipgrid for that. So it's a way for people to introduce themselves, talk about what they're learning, talk about different follow-ups with people. Really, it allows people to see where students live or where they work. And so it's a great way to build some background there as well. Start to work with, if I'm new in this app. Like I said, Flipgrid is probably the best, most versatile tool. You can make your own videos, you can have students respond. I would start with Flipgrid, as you probably have noticed me going on about that. Virtual format, group dynamic simulations given a new normal of social distancing. On the virtual world, that is tough. But what you could do is think about it in terms of collaboration. So an example would be having them collaborate on the same Wakelet or the same video. There's, I mentioned in the previous slide, an app that lets the students build a story together about a topic. And so you could check out that app, the name of which is escaping me, but Google story creation team story creation, and it'll come up. And there's a free version of that app as well. 3 more. All right. Receive handouts. Yep. And with the email. Okay. I think. Any recommendations? Habitat restoration. Yeah, I would default to Nearpod on that one because you can plunk students down right in those habitats. Talk about, you know, there's probably some great resources, documentaries about how that's going. There's the organization trying to plant 3 million trees, for example, right now. Their website I just saw is really great, it has videos on that. So you could create connections to people that are already doing that. Documentaries, maybe why that's important, would be sort of some recommendations on that. So, all right. So with that, I think we'll call it good there. Like I said, if you have specific questions, feel free to email me. And thanks for being here again. Thanks to the AE for hosting these. I hope it was worth your time and engaging. And maybe I'll turn it back over to you, Sherry, in case you have any last thoughts.
Thanks, Curt. That was so helpful and amazing. And thank you everybody for staying on and your wonderful comments. And go to ae.org and we'll have more resources. Again, if there's something in particular that you're looking for in the experiential education community, we'll be happy to try to make that happen for you all. We're all out there to help each other. Thanks, everyone.
You should be able to click finish now and get the PowerPoint.
Yeah, on Menti. And if you've been putting your email into the chat, we'll make sure you get all the information additionally. And feel free while you're on our website to join as a member. I'm being told by one of our board members that's in the chat right now. So we are a member association and we operate year round. So feel free. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.